So right now, I'm going to pass it over to Niki Amini-Naieni to talk to us about CountGD, which is an open source, publicly available model that automatically counts objects and images specified by text, visual examples, or both together. Whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Hello, my name is Nikki. I'm currently a DPhil or PhD student at the University of Oxford, working with Professor Andrew Zisserman in the Visual Geometry group on AI, deep learning, and computer vision. And today I'm going to talk to you about counting any object in images automatically. So this problem has a lot of different applications. You can imagine you might want to count people in crowds to limit the spread of illnesses like COVID-19, or you might want to count cells in microscopic images to monitor the progression of different diseases, or, which is relevant to you, you might want to count animals in wildlife photography, or cars in a parking lot to see how many spaces are open. So given all these applications, you can see that if you have a model that can automatically do this for any image and any object, in a matter of seconds, it could be very, very useful. And so this is exactly the problem that we tried to address in our paper, CountGD, Multi-Modal Open World Counting, which was published at NeurIPS 2024. And this is joint work with my co-author, Teng Da, and my advisor, Andrew. So basically, the idea is that CountGD is a model that, given an image or some kind of specification of the object to count, which can be in the form of a visual example or a text description or both, CountGD will automatically count the objects specified in the image. So given the visual example of a strawberry and the text strawberry, CountGD would count the strawberries and not the blueberries, and vice versa for the blueberries. And what makes it multimodal is that it accepts both visual examples and text to describe the object. And given these different prompts, it's able to adapt to new objects at inference time. So the same model can be used to count fish in images of a coral reef or birds in aerial drone images or anything really. That's the idea of the model that we proposed. And so people have been using this model quite frequently. So Annelid is a data annotation tool that has integrated our model into its workflow. And next, I'm going to show you a video that they created using CountGD. So you can see that they specified the object, which is a bison with text and a visual example. They hit OK, and it counts all of the objects. And this, I'm walking you through the video. So you can also specify the object with text only as well. So this is an image of birds, and it's able to count the birds. And this is one of apples, and it's going to count the apples as well, and so on. And the important thing here is that it's the same model that's doing this. So the same model is being used to count the birds and the apples, and here the neurons, and it's just able to generalize to these different scenarios, which is the beauty of it being open world. And yeah, so and then here are the fish. So they go through some more examples, and I have a link to the video if you want to see that. But yeah. So this is the architecture. This is also, can you see my full screen, or are you seeing the images of people that I'm also seeing?
I think I just see the full screen of the similarity map and the
Oh,
grounding
okay,
data.
okay, good. Okay, yeah, because I can't see what you see. So anyway, so yeah, so this is our architecture. This is the deep learning model that we developed, CountGD. And it is based off of the Grounding Dino architecture. So Grounding Dino is an open world object detector, and it struggles to count objects in images. So it struggles to detect objects when there are lots and lots of them, or things are occluded. And also it doesn't accept visual examples. So to develop CountGD, we extended Grounding Dino to accept visual examples using this exemplar extraction module here. And we fine-tuned it on counting data to get it to count high numbers of objects in densely packed scenes. We also mapped the detection problem to a counting problem here by enumerating all the detected instances and using that to estimate the count. This is the loss that we used up here for training the model. It is the same as the loss for Grounding Dino, but a difference here is that we trained on counting data, so we only had object centers instead of bounding blocks, and that's what the C means here. And this is because for counting data, you have lots and lots of objects and images, and people usually don't want to draw a box around every object, so they will just provide a center point. And so that is what we use to train the model. And so this is the predicted object center, and this is the true object center. And the idea is we want these to match, and so we train the model to do this during training. And we train on lots and lots of images with lots and lots of objects and from different categories. And we use specifically the FSC 147 data set for open world object counting. And these are just some images from that data set to kind of give you an idea of what we trained on. And then at inference, our model is able to just count the different objects in the images. So these are some qualitative results. So given the input images in the top row and the visual examples boxed in yellow and the text, CountGD outputs all the objects that it identifies. And so you can see in these examples, the ground truth count is very close, is the same as the predicted count. But being a multimodal model, it can also accept just text alone. And so here are some examples of that. So in these situations, CountGD is just given the text car and it counts the cars. And same in these other examples. So here are some quantitative results. So CountGD is currently the first multimodal open world counting model, and it's also the most accurate one available today. So you can see that it achieves lower counting errors than the SOTA, which stands for state of the art, which is the most accurate model before CountGD and all these different data sets. And in these cases, lower error bar is better. And in each case, CountGD achieves a lower error than the state of the art. So relevance for the conservation tech community, you can apply CountGD to count animals and images, and you can do that at varying levels of complexity and numbers of objects. So here we have an image from a bird specialist, and he's counting birds, and he just gives CountGD the text birds, and it can accurately detect and count all the birds in the images. Here are some seals. You can see that the count is increasing as I go from left to right. These are some other animals here, and as you can see, it gets 248 and the ground truth is 251, so it's very close in this case. And for the final image, I actually couldn't count the number of penguins because there were so many, but you can see that the dots seem to line up, and it seems pretty good. Here is an example where there is a high number of objects, and we actually do have the ground truth count from a penguinologist. So Dr. Tom Hart is a bird specialist and biologist and lecturer, and he's been using CountGD to count birds, seabirds, in aerial images. And this is an example where he is counting birds with CountGD, and he actually counted them by hand, and he estimated about 574. And this is how much CountGD gets. So he just gave, so this is the app interface that I developed for CountGD, and he gave it the input image on the left and the text bird, and it outputs what's on the right, which is a final count and a point on each bird it finds. And so interestingly, we're working with Tom on counting the largest population of animals on Earth on Zavodovsky Island, which is a remote uninhabited island with over 1 million penguins on it. And so we're currently working with Tom to do this with CountGD. And so this has not been done before, and it's challenging, but this is something that we're working on right now. And we're hoping that it could yield scientific insights that aren't possible to realize at smaller scales by doing this for biology. So we're also working with the Gloucester Marine Genomics Institute in Boston to count cells in microscopic images. Now I'm going to try to use the laser pointer. Okay, there we go. So this is a very challenging task. And they approached me, the researchers at the Marine Genomics Institute, and they wanted to do this. And then they showed me some of their images, and I was like, wow, this is very challenging. So these are different cells, but what makes it challenging is they're chained together. So this is very difficult to separate the different cells here. These ones are easier because they're alone. But yeah, so they basically want to enumerate all the cells in this image. Another challenge they want to do is they want to differentiate between different cells. So they want to count the white cells, the dead cells, and the red cells. And this is also challenging. So we're working with them to develop techniques to do that, to dramatically accelerate the pace at which they run experiments and they analyze their data. Because right now they do this by hand for lots and lots of images, and we're hoping to remove that manual labor. So there are lots of open source tools available to use CountGD. So I created an app. That's the first thing here. And that's what you're seeing here. This is the interface to try out the model on your own images. There's also an open source code. There's Analyt, which is the data annotation tool that I was showing the video for earlier. Landing AI is a company founded by Andrew Ng. They have a vision agent tool that also uses CountGD. And then there's also Saiwa has a training free object counting with prompts tool that has also been powered by CountGD. And we're continuously working with domain experts and others to develop more and more tools and interfaces to integrate CountGD into the workflows of different people in different research areas. So with this model, there are currently a couple of challenges. The first challenge is right now, the counting model struggles if there are two objects that are very similar, but have like one slight difference, for example, color. So if you're trying to differentiate between male and female seals, that is currently difficult. It will just count all the seals. And even though you can differentiate between them with color, so right now we're working on extending the model to handle these fine-grained categories. Another challenging example is adult versus baby penguins. So we are currently working on this. This is important for conservation specialists, it seems. And then the other challenge is counting very high numbers of objects. So these are images from Tom from Zavadovsky Island. And the current way we're approaching this is by cropping the image and passing each crop to the model, since there is a limit on how many objects it can count per image. It's 900, and the way we've addressed this is by cropping the image and counting each crop one at a time, and then resolving the overlapping regions. And so we're working on that right now. And yeah, so thank you for letting me speak today. It has been an honor, and we would love to hear if you have any counting applications that we could potentially help with CountGD, or any other ideas for the challenges. I'm always open to collaboration and learning about new ways that our work can be useful to others. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that talk. That is so cool. Most of the comments in the chat that came through during your presentation were along the lines of, that's so cool, really impressive, that's fantastic. So that is awesome, and I agree. And one question I have, I think, coming off of the quiz, is how does the model work with like obviously like the photos that we were looking at in the quiz of like camouflage species? How does the model work in instances like that? If you have any use cases or information on that.
So if it's like very difficult to detect, like the bird, I think I would say that would be really challenging. That probably couldn't do that. I would love for it to get that good, to be able to identify things that are just like really difficult to identify. One thing that you could try is using a visual example, but I think that is that is a good thing to work towards, though. I think right now that would be too challenging. If it's like a really tiny object, yeah, okay, maybe it could probably work, but yeah. So I'm not gonna say that it can do that yet.
I mean, it was hard enough as for us to do it as
Yeah,
people looking at it. So that makes sense. And we have some questions in the chat. One question from David Hunter is asking if it is possible to port the model to JavaScript and run it from the front end.
Oh, so so right now for the app, what we have is because the model runs on a GPU, so it's running on a GPU, like not locally, like it's accessing it out there, and then it's running inference. So if there's a way to send requests to the model, that probably could be possible. I don't see any issue with doing that. I think that is possible. We have someone who's trying to integrate it with R for biologists. So they're trying to develop some kind of tool to request results from the model and then email the person when they're there, and then they get the results for a bunch of them. If you just want one image, it doesn't take that long. I think if my screen is being shared, let me actually see. How do I get out of here? I have a demo I can actually show, but
I have to switch which like window you're sharing, if you're
oh,
sharing a window.
can you see my screen? So this is the demo. So if you want to count something here, it doesn't take that long. So doing like one image doesn't take, and you can upload different images, but here are some preloaded examples. So right now you're just giving it the text bird, and it can count the birds. So that's pretty fast. You can also provide like a visual example. This might be, let's see if I can do this with the Zoom sharing. I haven't tried this before. So there's like a visual example, and you can also count with that as well. So, and you can just upload images to this. And we also, yeah, so having something that requests results from this, this might work.
We also have we have a few more questions. One is from Kim, who asks how many parameters are in the model.
So I can tell you how much memory it takes. I don't know the exact number of parameters, but it's about 1.2 gigabytes for the weights. So I can give you that. And yeah, it's about the same as grounding dyno, so which is an object detector as
It
well.
seems
So
like that answer made Kim happy. And he also asked,
okay, yeah.
which is an interesting question, could it count the instances of my face in a crowd of faces? That's another question from Kim.
Oh, so like if you, so that would be the fine grain. Like if you want to count like a specific person, it would struggle. And this is literally the thing that we're working on right now is how to, because you can imagine like if you have a visual example of like your face and then that should help. So we're trying to improve that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, exciting. Yeah, we have a lot of people who are interested in sharing the links to all these different resources and how they can try this out. And some more questions in the chat, which I don't know if we'll have time to get to, but I encourage everybody to stay after hours and talk and answer those questions or direct you to the chat, Nikki. But give me one second. I have to pull up my screen. Yeah, we're just at time. So I want to thank everybody for coming and joining April's Variety Hour, and especially to our speakers for their lovely and fascinating presentations. I'm going to end the recording in just a few minutes, but like I mentioned, everybody is invited to stick around for after hours to have a more sort of casual conversation about the talks or anything else basically under the sun. So thank you again so much for coming, and we will see everybody next month on May 28th.